Welcome back to the Comic Book Savant YouTube channel. I'm your host, James Harris. In this episode, we're going to be doing a new installment of recommended reads. We have X-Men Dark Phoenix out now in theaters, so I thought it would be a good idea to recommend some reading material. If you come back from the movie and you want to read some comics about the X-Men. So first up, I have Dark Phoenix, the Dark Phoenix Saga. This is by far probably one of the biggest storylines and one of the most important storylines in the whole history of the X-Men. But this is a long-standing, historic, epic X-Men tale that you definitely need to read. Jean Grey, just loosely based, Jean Grey gets taken over by the Phoenix Force, and all types of craziness ensues. It was a landmark story for the X-Men. It's a narrative that had lingered on through many years outside that initial story from the comics that reverberated over the years. And they had to deal with the Phoenix Force many other times after this initial story. So the X-Men, the Dark Phoenix Saga, definitely one book that you would definitely need to check out. And before I go any further, I will have links down, the affiliate links down in the comment section below, so you can find all these books that I'm recommending to you. So if you're interested in anything that I mentioned, look down in the comment section. Next, we have X-Men, the Mutant Massacre. This was another major storyline from the mid to late 80s that came out as a massive event that kind of touched the whole Marvel universe. The Marauders comes into the tunnels of New York, where the mutant community, the Morlocks, stayed, and massacre them basically. And all the heroes from the Marvel universe, more specifically the X-Men, go in the tunnels to try to combat the Marauders and save as many Morlocks as possible. And this is a very important story, because this is the first time we really saw the X-Men. We saw them kind of lose battles, but not in this way. This book forever changed a lot of characters, most notably Angel, or Warren Worthington III, which we better know as Angel, which aka through the events of this story, you get to see how it leads him down the path where he eventually becomes Archangel, the Angel, aka Death, and it becomes we get introduced to Apocalypse, and he becomes one of the four horsemen of Apocalypse. So the events in this story leads to all the events that take him down that path that is forever changed that character. The X-Men don't come out pretty in this one. They take a lot of hits. Some casualties happen. A lot of big players and big X-Men characters get taken off the board for quite a while from the events of this series. It reverberated more than just past this event for quite some time there afterwards. It was definitely repercussions, long-lasting repercussions from them getting involved in this conflict. So it's definitely a must-read story to find out more history about the X-Men. Next, I would say XMen Schism. This was written by Jason Aaron. It's been about like 5 or so years ago. I feel like this is an important story because this was another one that was a fundamental shift in the lore of the X-Men. You have, how I can best describe, you have Cyclops on one side versus Wolverine. And this kind of mimics the conflict that you have from the origins of the X-Men between and we've seen this in the different movies. If you've seen any of the previous X-Men movies, where especially the first class movies, where they set up that Magneto and Xavier were at one point on the same side and actually very good friends, and then due to their differences of opinion when it came to how mutants should handle mutant-human relations, forever split them, hence the word schism. So it's an updated version. Now we have Cyclops on one side and Wolverine on the other. And I would say in this, you have Cyclops kind of being the Magneto of the situation, where Wolverine is being more the Charles Xavier side, and what rifts and what are the consequences of these rifts between these two iconic characters of the X-Men going against one another, and what split does it cause with the X-Men, and it dictated a lot of the stories moving forward coming out of that event. Books were launched, unexpected books that were really good off this breakup or splitting of philosophies of different groups of X-Men pursuing their own vision of Xavier's dream, being how extreme or how peaceful it was. So it was very interesting. Limited series. You can get this trade. I think it was a 5 to 6 issue trade that you can pick up. Links will be down below for that. Next one is Operation Zero Tolerance. This is one of my favorite. That is a massive storyline. You can actually get it all in one huge collection that covers the main story, all the different X-Men books. It crossed over. It was a big X-Men centric event that crossed over a lot of different X-Men books, where you had a Bastion, which is this super sentinel, cybernetic sentinel, like the next evolution of the Sentinel program. So he has a human face and appearance, but he has all their powers, and he lords over all other Sentinels. So he had a public face, so he could damage mutants on both the forward on camera and behind the scenes. So he's this new hybrid threat to mutants, and he goes after them quick and hard. And you see some of the biggest X-Men like Xavier, Wolverine taken off the board early, and it comes to some newer X-Men recruits, and you get OG X-Men, Iceman being kind of in the center and the forefront of this main story, taking some new recruit X-Men and trying to save and save his fellow X-Men and head up against Bastion. Really good story. Again, one of my favorites. I just love it because I always loved the OG X-Men. So seeing Iceman kind of come back, that really wasn't used much at the time. It wasn't too much in the forefront. It really shows a spotlight on him through this series, and going up like a real tangible threat with Bastion. He was like really heavy duty, and again, he wiped out. He decimated the X-Men quickly and took them off the board. And it took Iceman stepping in a leadership role, which we had never really seen him much in before that point. Having to spearhead this initiative to free his fellow X-Men. So great story, worth checking out for sure. And then last but not least, I'm going to talk about Astonishing X-Men Volume 1, The Gifted. This is Josh Whedon's X-Men book. He did Astonishing X-Men. I think his initial run was about 25 issues. I couldn't find an omnibus collection to list for you guys down below, but this is the first trade that you can check out to see if you like it. And if you are vested in this first trade and you like the story and you want to go forward, it's trades covering the rest of his run. But I couldn't find just one thing that has the whole collection of his Astonishing X-Men run on there. But just great storytelling. John Cassidy is the artist on it, so it's great writing, great art. A self-contained story that you just read the Astonishing X-Men books. It wasn't tied to any of the other X-Men stories at the time, so it's self-contained in itself. So you can just read this series or his run on it and get one ongoing complete story. And it's a great tale, so it's definitely worth checking out. If you haven't read any Josh Whedon stuff, you know him from directing Avengers 1 and Avengers Age of Ultron, Buffy, Firefly. Unfortunately, we know from directing Justice League, so for many different things. But this is another great self-contained story here that is a really definitive run on X-Men, done by a great director and a great just creator as well with Josh Whedon. So it's definitely worth checking out as well. So those are the books that I have for you for this recommended reads episode. So if you've recently seen X-Men Dark Phoenix and you're curious on where to start reading some X-Men books, here were 5 good recommendations to get you started, to get your toes a little wet into the bigger world of comics and X-Men comics in particular. Again, if you haven't already, if you haven't clicked that subscribe button, please do so. Also smash that thumbs up. Also, leave comments down behind. Have you are you going to pick up any of these books? If so, which one that I described briefly in this episode that caught your interest? It might be, worth you picking up. And also leave suggestions on what other maybe characters or teams that you would like to see me do an upcoming episode of recommended reads. I'm down to cover. If it's one I haven't already covered already, I'm totally open into doing that. So if you have a moment, leave all that down below. As always, I'm your host, James Harris. This is the Comic Book Savant YouTube channel, and I will see you guys next time for another video. Until then, you guys be safe, and I will see you soon.